Spano from Maddox Wealth Management, and today we're talking to an iconic Milwaukee brand called Perlick, and two members of the fifth generation of that family, Lori Burgum Navarro and Theodore T.J. Perlick Molinari. Why don't you guys tell me a little bit about where it started?
Well, Perlick started in Milwaukee in 1917. It was founded by Robert Karl Perlick. He came over from Germany in the late 1800s with his siblings, without his father, who had passed away, and came to Milwaukee because his cousin was living here. And got started in working in Milwaukee in various industries as the tool shop of the world back in the day,
Right.
and ultimately decided to start his own business.
So he asked his eldest son, Walter, for $2,000 and said, hey, I want to start a machining business, a brass machining business. And they first started, because cars are really popular now, you know, we started making parts for cars.
Right.
Around 1920, Prohibition happened. It's a little history lesson. Prohibition happened, and
That sucked.
yeah.
That was tough.
And there were bars and restaurants, and they all closed.
Right.
And 1933, Prohibition ended, and what did everybody want to do? Open up bars and make money that way. And
And drink.
And drink.
Have fun.
And where did they have to go? Who provided the brewery dispensing equipment? Perlick. So actually, during Prohibition, we tripled in size.
Wow, that's awesome. And so being here in Milwaukee, which was home of all of the beer manufacturers, if you will, I mean, did that help being close to, was there any connection at all to Miller or Pabst, any of those folks?
There was, and that was part of our legacy business. If you have been on the Miller Brewery Tour, you're familiar with the humongous vats that they have where they boil.
Right.
And, well, you have to move the liquid through the vats. You have to move the liquid through the system, and that's got to be done with fittings.
Right.
And those breweries on that scale had never been built before. So A.O. Smith, another longtime Milwaukee company, was asked to build the vats. And A.O. Smith came to Perlick and said, we know you're good at brass fittings. Can you make the fittings to go on these vats for these breweries?
Right, right.
So all of these massive breweries have Perlick fittings on.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the connection started with the brewery buying the fittings,
Right.
and then since the breweries at one point ran the bars themselves, they were using Perlick parts in the bar.
You know, you mentioned brass fittings, and was that really the key to how this got? I mean, you were using the refrigeration and the brass. Is that something that separates Perlick from other organizations?
So if you go historically, the brass led to, well, we dispense beer, we now need to keep it cold, and we were purchasing systems from somebody else.
Purchasing it like refrigeration boxes
Yeah.
and
Right.
attaching our fittings.
Right, got it.
Yeah, and then in 1939, we started our refrigeration business.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
so that's how we became the leader in both. We were the leader in beer dispensing, and then we started doing our own refrigeration boxes.
Do you know what
attaching them
happened?
together.
Do you know what happened? So that was right about, obviously, the beginning of World War II for the United States. What happened during that time? Because, you know, there were so many organizations that were asked to lend a hand in that effort. Did Perlick get off track at any time during that run?
Oh yeah, we were taken out of our industry and put into munitions.
Oh, you were.
So we pivoted
Right,
based
right.
on government instruction,
Right.
but came right back after the war and got right back into what we were doing,
Right.
And grew the business.
Right. And so now fifth generation, right? Is that what that is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yes.
That's amazing, really. I mean, I don't know the statistics, but that's rarefied air,
Yeah.
right? To get to a fifth generation.
Yeah.
I mean, running a family-operated business, does that ever come up about, you know, you're a Perlick, you know, and it's in your family, and does it help or hurt managing the business?
There's always challenges when you're a family member in your own family business, no question about it. But I think Lori and I take the approach of we're just like anybody else that's in the business, trying to do the best that we can
Right.
to make sure the business is successful.
Right.
Because as you know, you're running a business, you have people who work at the business, they count on it for their livelihood.
Right.
And you as the owner have the responsibility to ensure that that's a viable, successful, profitable business, because if it's not, it won't be there for everybody.
Right.
And it's been just a delight to have generations of people. We've got generations of family that have worked at Perlick along the way.
Oh.
One that's 4 generations in, another that's 3, and multiple that are 2. Father, son, father, daughter, mother, granddaughter. Wonderful that they would give us their time and their careers
Right.
to be in the business. And so as a family member, it's incumbent upon you to make sure that thing keeps going so that people continue to have those opportunities.
And not only is it as an ongoing entity, but these are family, and you know that they're relying on you to pay their mortgages and educate their kids and so on. So it's an enormous responsibility. And business owners get that. And sometimes, there's been so much talk about, job creators aren't job creators, but they are. It's an opportunity really to grow and to engage families, and that's really awesome. Let me ask you: is there, there was so much you heard about the Suez Canal and the plane, the ship that went sideways and got stuck, and there were so many things, and they said that's only going to make the supply chain worse. And the supply chain has been bad because as we're coming out of this, some people can't get roofing materials or drywall. Are you seeing anything in the supply chain that's been affected?
We've been a little lucky in that many of our parts and pieces haven't come from the affected territories. Now, cost going up, of course, everybody's experiencing that. Right. And then challenges on lead time, absolutely. Those are real and they're coming. And we're very lucky to have an excellent team working on addressing that, finding alternative suppliers in the event that there's a slowdown or a port challenge in Los Angeles, for example, or something like in the Suez, just horrible accident. Been very lucky. A little bit lucky, a little bit good, but it's better to be good than lucky.
Yeah. And so when you think about where it's going now, orders are starting to come back in. And you've done some awesome, cool jobs, and we'll get to the residential in a minute, but commercial is phenomenal, right? I know you guys are involved at the Fiserv Forum and everything that happened there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Stadiums are one of our niches,
right.
And it's really proud to say when we have a stadium that's going on, to tell our employees, hey, we're doing the Chase Stadium, we're doing the Raiders Stadium, and it's really neat
in
to
Vegas?
see.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
And what's a fun tip is there's 2.5 miles of beer line in those stadiums.
And so it's some of those are really tall buildings. Is Perlick different in being able to push that up high or around the building?
Perlick does it the best.
Okay.
That we have always prided ourselves on, going back to 1963 when Robert Perlick, our grandfather, came out with the Century system. And we tend to forget how things used to be, in that when you used to dispense beer, you had to pull it right out of the keg, right above, in a keg cooler.
Right.
Well, then we thought we could move it to the basement. Now that was an improvement.
Right.
But wow, let's see if we can move it from somewhere else.
Right.
And the thing that people don't appreciate is how much of voodoo is involved in beer dispensing.
Yes.
It is really challenging because beer is very volatile, which not many people understand. So if you pressurize it wrong, it turns into foam coming out of the tap.
Right.
So you have to have all this science and engineering that goes into it to ensure that the experience that you have at Fiserv, they're just pouring beer, because every bit of foam means they're losing money, because that's money going directly down the drain. And so Perlick started with the Century system came from 100 feet, and now we'll go thousands of feet.
No kidding.
Wow.
Pump it multi-stories. There's some limits as to what you can do with beer before you destroy it, but Perlick pushes the limits and has been the leading innovator in that space. And our competitors, they try to keep up, but we have stayed ahead of them.
So a lot of times, though, you see in a bar, and somebody will drink a beer and they go, "Oh, I wasn't really gonna make that face." And the first thing the bartender says, "Oh, it's the line." Right? Have you had that experience?
It's a challenge. That's always a challenge, as TJ said. Beer is a finicky subject. It's live. It can create bacteria. So Perlick has spent years and years making sanitary heads and trunk line to make sure it's sanitary. It's a big part of the business.
Right.
But yeah, if you do have to clean your beer lines every 2 weeks, and there's really kind of no ifs, ands, and buts around it.
So there are companies that do that, though, right?
There are companies that will come in and flush your lines and stuff like that, but it's recommended to clean it every 2 weeks. And if people don't, you may get, if it's 3 weeks or a month or so, you may get, beer that maybe isn't as fresh as it's supposed to be. But we have beer engineers that work on the trunk housing and setting up the stadiums and restaurants and things like that, which is really fun.
So cool job. So the Raider Stadium here, Fiserv Forum, and where the Bucks and Lambeau Field. Wow, that's just awesome. What other jobs have you done around the country in that facility, in stadiums, for example? Like what comes to mind?
Madison Square Garden in New York,
wow.
Soldier Field in Chicago, Texas Rangers Baseball Stadium. Go right on down the list.
That's awesome.
It's generally Perlick.
Right.
So somebody else will try, and then they'll call us.
Right.
Because they think they can get a better deal with somebody else. Well, guess what? It doesn't work.
Oh, the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes.
I remember that when I was like in high school. My dad was like, oh, they got a different system. It didn't work. And they called Perlick.
Right.
We went in there and fixed it all. And it worked the day because they're like, when those 70,000 fans show up on the day the stadium opens, it better work. And Perlick always works the first day.
I'm a big fan of buy nice or pay twice.
Yes.
Right. So and you can use that against the the next person who tries to undercut you. Right.
Yeah.
Now you really need to do that. So then you switched from doing a lot of commercial, right? And now you're doing awesome residential stuff. I see people putting this in their homes all over the place. So you can talk to a little bit about that.
It was a
Great and beautiful.
it was a great play because it's the strongest, most robust refrigeration system in the commercial market,
Right.
and you take that and you can sell that value to the homeowner,
Right.
Especially high-end homeowners. They want the best. They want it to work. They need to count on it. It's the same thing. You're having people over to your house, and your beverage refrigerator dies. That's not acceptable.
Yeah, right.
You've got to have it working. You've got to be able to count on it. And styling, right? It's got to look good. It's got to perform well. It's got to have the whole package. It can't be just some commercial behemoth that sits in your home
Right.
that looks terrible.
Right.
So
Can a behemoth be beautiful? I mean, it is really good looking stuff.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. It's a challenge to make it good looking because your temptation is to just function.
Right.
But in the residential customer isn't gonna. That's not gonna be okay.
Right.
They want the form because it's got to match their cabinets and
Right.
it's got to match their countertop and it's got to fit in, and they don't want it to even note that there's something there many times. They just want it to be there, maybe as a nightstand.
Let me ask you. A lot of times, it's the ones that I've seen are glass, and we've done some things. But can you put the similar cabinet team that you have around the cabinets in front of those things? Oh, you can't, right? So
Yes.
Yeah.
we see all the refrigeration companies do that. Oh, that's awesome. You talk about what makes Perlick difference, right? What are those things?
Perlick has been around, 5-generation family business. It's an innovation leader. Our competitors are always saying, well, we're as good as Perlick. They're never saying we're better. They're always trying to compare themselves to us. So what's unique about us? We keep pushing the industry forward.
Right.
We keep innovating. We keep investing and making sure that we stay ahead and stay in touch with the customer and what they need. For example, if you've ever attended bar, you know that it's a painful
Have I ever
experience.
attended?
Yeah.
I've driven by them.
Okay, you don't attend the
No, attended, been the bartender.
Yeah, been the
Oh,
bartender.
attended a bar. Yes,
Yes, yes.
I have attended a bar. I
Okay.
made the unfortunate mistake, TJ, of owning a bar at one point in my life. So.
That's a dream.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
Well,
It
we have
teaches
a
you a lot of
solution.
lessons.
And I would tell you, if you think about owning a bar, go home and lay down, and maybe the thought will pass because it's hard work, man.
Yes, well, I think that what we tell people is that if you're thinking about opening up a restaurant,
Right.
make sure you have $100,000 or $500,000 that you're never going to see again,
Yeah.
because it's a tough industry.
Yeah, right.
It's an industry of dreamers, and I think that's a wonderful thing that it is, because there's very few other industries where you say, this is my dream and I want to do this.
Right.
And that's why I think this COVID pandemic was just so horrible for the industry, because it's people who dream, who do things not for the rational reasons, but because they love it. They work the hours, they put the time in, they devote themselves to it, and then something comes along that you have no control over that just kicks you in the gut.
Yeah, no
And certainly horrible thing to see for those folks. But so thrilled that the government stepped in, put a relief package in place,
Right.
and is promoting an ability for them to get back on their feet, because they will drive it back. They are the dreamers, and that they're entrepreneurs. They're wonderful people. They're taking a risk. We love it.
Right. You talk about the recovery, and we did lots of radio, and we talked about what the recovery was going to look like, and we said, well, it's going to take on a couple letters. One is going to be V for certain industries, right? And then it's going to be a K-style recovery. In other words, some industries are going to do well, healthcare, financial services, and the like, and some are not. Those that are in the service industry, that you think about travel and in restaurants and hotels, for example, those industries are certainly haven't recovered yet. But you guys are on that side of it, and you're starting to see something come out of that right now, right?
We're on the track.
Yeah.
We're on the track, the bottom part of the
Right.
K track,
Right.
and
Right.
yeah,
Well, good.
we're seeing, because we're hiring, and you can see more orders getting in the books.
Have you flown lately? Because the airports, we were in the airport last week, a couple of them, and they're getting full. So as people start to move around and more people get vaccinated, I read, and this is going to be timed as of where we are today, but nearly 80% of those age 65 and older in the state of Wisconsin have been vaccinated. So,
yes.
That, and they were, of course, the most vulnerable. So as people start to move around, I think your industry is going to recover as well.
Absolutely. People want to go out. They want to have fun. They want to see their friends. Right. They want to engage in these activities. There's a reason it was growing pre-pandemic,
right.
because there was, it was fun. There was experiences out there, and there were innovators in the industry who were delivering new experiences. Right. And then you got the brakes put on it, but the demand's still there. It's just pent up.
Yeah.
So the question is not when it will recover. I apologize, if it will recover,
right.
but when.
Right.
And we hope it's sooner rather than later. Go get your vaccine,
get
yourself healthy so that we can get back to having some fun.
We all do. So if you had to go, if someone pushed and said, and I was going to put this in my stadium, right, and say, why Perlick? How would you answer that question?
Quality, reliability, performance, integrity, all of those things. Right. When you're investing a lot of money in an operation, you need things that are going to work. Right. So you're investing in a stadium. You're going to have, call it 80,000 people in a football stadium, 50,000 in a baseball stadium. If anything goes wrong, you are losing an enormous opportunity every single minute that you're down.
Right.
And do you want to take that chance?
Right.
That's a question you as the owner have to answer. But we're really glad that many people in the industry don't take that chance and go with the cheaper guy. They understand the value. Right. They understand what Perlick brings to the table. Quality, integrity, reliability. Perlick's going to guarantee your system's going to work. Right. And we're going to be there to help you if it doesn't, because it's tough. But we understand how important economically that is to you, to make sure that you're operational, that you're not pouring foam, that your refrigerators are working, so that you're making money, because the money is made in the front of the house. Right. Don't let a restaurant person tell you that they're making money selling food. They're making money selling alcohol and drinks and soda and tea and coffee and all these great new things.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So you need to make sure we deliver a good cold beer.
Absolutely.
And product. So what I find interesting is brand. And brand is really important. And you think about the iconic brands that have come out of the city of Milwaukee, right? Of course, we all know about the beers in Miller, for example, but Harley Davidson. I mean, talk about brand loyalty. People tattoo it on their arms. Now that's brand loyalty, right? But Perlick has got a phenomenal brand, not only here in Milwaukee, but around the world, really. I mean, you serve corporations around the world, right? We do,
and we're planning on growing our international footprint. And one of those pieces is leveraging that great American brand, the brand that the best operators in the U.S. trust. Those operators have locations outside of the U.S., and they need to have that same reliability, even more so in a foreign country, because their home offices are in the U.S. They need to know it's going to work wherever it is in the world that they have an operation, because they are guaranteeing the same level of quality service that they are in the U.S., and that's why they've been successful.
Right.
So the brand piece is huge, and that's a testament to all the hard work of previous generations.
For sure.
Great brands don't just come around.
Right.
Great brands take work, they take dedication to principles. There was a great quote from our great-great-grandfather, Robert Carl Perlick, and he said, "Build the best product you can. A poorly made product is expensive at any price.
Right.
Do not listen to those who'd have you build something cheaply. Be honest with yourself, your customers, and your fellow man, because only a few black marks will soil a good reputation."
Right.
Remember these things always. And I think the successive generations have lived by that wonderfully.
Right.
And as we now grow and come out of this pandemic, the brand is a key piece of our business, and we're going to make sure that we manage it really well, because it's a huge asset. The largest asset on many corporations' balance sheets
is their brand.
Is their brand.
I can't wait till the day people start tattooing Perlick on themselves.
Exactly.
Then we win.
All right, let's for sure. But let's change gears a little bit. So you grew up in the Milwaukee area.
Mm-hmm.
Where exactly?
I grew up around the Elm Grove area.
Okay.
I went to University of Iowa. I became an art teacher,
okay.
But I started working at Perlick when I was 20 years old.
Okay.
I was summer help. I think it's a funny story because as you get a teacher, you still have summers off. So I was the permanent summer help. And so I would go and kind of every summer go in different departments and learn all about the area, and my boss would always give me a goodbye party.
Right. Because he would happen to see you go.
Yeah, they said, "Oh, you're going off to do great, things," right. And I'm like, "Oh, I'll be back." By the fourth goodbye party, I was like, I'm coming back next summer. And so,
that's funny.
so he should have the whole company come, they'd sign cards, and I'm like, I'm coming back.
Right.
And so,
funny.
I'm coming back, but
So when did you start full time?
full time, well, 2 years, well, no, 3 years ago now, I
Okay.
started full time. So I've been part time for more than 13 years, and
Right.
now I'm starting full time as our generation came in
Right.
to the business. And TJ, how long have you been there now?
7 years.
7
years.
years.
February.
Full time. I've been there 10 years full time.
But before that, TJ, you did something else, right? I mean, you had Juris Doctorate.
I did. I practiced law for 8 years and did a lot of defense work, so tried a lot of cases. And
in the courtroom,
like real courtroom, real juries,
cool.
real people's lives.
Right.
It taught me a lot of great lessons about how to react and how to be empathetic to people who are going through something very difficult.
Yeah.
Nobody ever wants to call a lawyer.
Right.
It's not usually because you're excited about something that you have to call a lawyer. Something's gone wrong, and you have to be there to help people. Yeah. So that's not to be. But that's the hospitality industry, right? You need to take care of people. You need to be there for them, provide them. With celebration, bad times. But had a lot of fun doing that, and came to a point in my life where really wanted to figure out, well, what do I want to do in the next step? And so the opportunity to come in the business, the family was discussing a generational transition, and so it made sense to me to go in. It had been very important to our family for 4 generations before us, and in many family businesses, people make the choice not to go in, not to be involved. And that family business, 9 times out of 10, ends up getting sold. Because nobody's taking an interest in the business and nobody's making sure that it's carried on to the next generation. Whether you run it or not, it's a totally different question. But just so that you make sure and you pay attention to keep it going.
Yeah, fortunately, to our generation 5, there's 5 of us. And this was approached to us, 10 years ago? Do you want the family transitioning to the next generation? Came up, and we said we all came together. We met monthly and quarterly to discuss this. And all of us 5 decided, hey, we're gonna take this on. We're gonna do it. We're gonna transition the company, and we have a 100-year plan, as we call it.
So one of the things that we do as a wealth management firm, other than obviously manage money and taxes, is we talk a lot about estate planning and how it transitions from one family to another. And you guys did that. You talked about not only how that was transferred, but how you're going to do that going forward with a 100-year plan. I mean, that's really making the business, having a business continuity plan, TJ.
Absolutely. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of communication. You got to get everybody aligned on what's most important. And to our family, what was most important is ensuring the continuity of the business. And making sure that there's no tax event, there's no unforeseen circumstance that would cause a financial draw on the business. And so what we did, a couple different fold, is we gave the business to the next generation. So we are out. 5th generation, we don't own the business. Our kids own the business. And our kids can keep the business in the family to their kids. Now, if somebody wants to get out at some point, there's also a way to do that, because that is also part of the problem of family businesses, is somebody feels trapped in the business. If they feel trapped in the business gets hurt. So you have to think about all of these different pieces to stay in business for 100 years. And that's our 100-year plan, is to put out options for people, so as they go, they have opportunities, and they know what they are, and they know how the machines work to get them to where they want to be. But it's planning, it's thought, and it's alignment. And if you don't have those pieces and you don't have communication in your family, it's not going to work, Dave. I'm sure you see this in your business all the time with people unwilling to make that commitment. But again, it comes back to those family values. The 4th generation, the 3rd generation, the business was always put into a trust that would be for the benefit of the next group, not to benefit the group that owned the business.
And the reason why, and we talk about estate planning all the time, and right now there's a conversation happening in Congress about changing the estate tax laws, And one of the arguments against that is, if just think about, let's not talk about Perlick or Annex Wealth Management for a second in that transition, let's talk about a different small business or a farm, And so the farmer may have a certain income, which might be small because of the cattle that he has or the crop that he is using, but then he has a lot of land, and that land has a value. Now, if that farmer, falls off the tractor and he's no longer around, how does it get transitioned? And with an estate tax, they may have to sell that land to pay the taxes. That's what estate taxes are all about. And so they don't want this continuity of going on, and that's something that we battle with all the time. There's planning to be done, and using your law degree, even though it was a defense, you're familiar with that, to use trust, to use the proper formats to move that from one generation to the next. Otherwise, there might not be a sixth or seventh generation.
Absolutely. And what's key to think about is what's really important to you as a family. If it's to get rich, don't put the money in trust, because it doesn't matter what happens in the next generation.
Right.
But if you want your business to succeed and you want the people who work with you to be successful and the business to be successful, it's not about you.
Right.
It's about everybody else, and it's about the future. And that's really the most important thing. And I feel like our family had a great example from our grandfather, Robert. When his uncle Hilbert died, that's exactly what happened to Hilbert. Right. Hilbert had no plan, and so his family had to sell their shares to pay the estate tax.
Right.
And Grandpa, Robert, went to his father and said, that's not happening to us.
Right.
And he put in place the structure that got us to where we are today. And then the fourth generation and the fifth generation collaborated to create what we have now going forward for the sixth, seventh, eighth generations to take us for the next 100
And everybody,
years.
Everybody wants job creators, but there's always this argument that happens because, with jobs, if you go to any underprivileged area, what do they want there? They want jobs, right? And jobs then create an opportunity to move forward, to move your family forward for their second generation. So it's so important to be a job creator and to have that helping people mentality, because that's what moves it forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, and just to wrap up, because it's been a phenomenal conversation. Went a little farther, a little longer than what we wanted, but we could do this over a nice cold beer too. But great
from a Perlick tap.
From a Perlick tap, right? So, any final things that you want to share about Perlick, and anything, TJ, that you think that we missed on that you'd want to leave with a final thought for people watching this?
Just grateful for the opportunity to be here, to talk to you, Dave, and to tell people about what we're trying to do, whatever we can do to help other people, other families in a similar position where they don't know what to do. There are answers out there.
Right.
You have problems, you can solve them. It's not insurmountable. It takes time, it takes communication, and it brings you together as a family.
Right.
And it's a positive experience. Make it a positive experience. Do the right thing. It's not about you. Just a wonderful opportunity to be here and talk with you about what we've gone through, and hopefully it's helpful to your listeners.
Yeah, right, and that was great life lessons. No matter no matter what the industry, right? That's a good way to teach a kid to do the right thing and work hard, and things generally work out, right? So thank you to everybody for joining us today, and look forward to other conversations we're going to have. I really appreciate your time today.